off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have this apartment attic. This TikTok tells an incredibly interesting but horrifying story. The TikToker Sasha Jones had a series of videos blow up as she told a story about her childhood home that she lived in with her family for 10 years. While living in this home, she explained that she had frequent bouts of sleep paralysis and night terrors, as well as sleepwalking. Any fans of all things creepy know that this probably isn't a good sign. Sasha explains that at one point she went on a week-long trip to LA, but when she returned home, her mom sat her down to tell her that they were suddenly going to be moving out in 2 weeks. As it turns out, Sasha's mom revealed to her that while she was away on her trip, the family had found an attic that was hidden away in the closet that had not been disclosed in the lease. Basically, the attic was only accessible by one little square and it was super heavy. Apparently, when Sasha's mom sent her brother up there to check it out, he saw a bed, a dresser, some sheets, and a pair of shoes, and while everything was covered in dust, there was a set of footprints to her room and then back to the bed. I think it absolutely makes sense why they ended up moving out as quickly as possible. Sasha also explained that once they moved apartments, her night terrors, sleepwalking, and sleep paralysis all stopped, which cannot be a coincidence. In our number 7 spot today, we have this New York City apartment. This TikTok is kind of the one that really started the secret hidden room trend on the app. Last year, Samantha Hartzell was feeling frustrated in her New York City apartment because she was continuously feeling a freezing cold draft, so she decided to investigate the source of it. It was coming from her bathroom, and after doing some searching, she realized that it was coming from behind her bathroom mirror, and that this mirror was a little too easy to move. When she took the mirror off of the wall, she revealed an entire other room, and of course, like anyone, became worried that someone may be living in that room, but still bravely decided to investigate. After climbing through this hole in the wall, she revealed an entire unoccupied apartment on the other side. It is unclear exactly what this situation is with this apartment, but she most definitely called her landlord immediately after. In our number 6 spot today, we have this hidden safe. This one is a little different on today's list because rather than a mysterious finding, this hidden gem was intentionally placed by this TikToker. Chris Bonomo to TikTok where they showed a genius secret hiding place where they store their valuables. This secret safe is hidden in the bathroom behind a piece of molding. After this, they placed a towel rack on top so that the rack can act as a sort of handle to reveal this well-placed secret. While this is extremely cool and honestly a seemingly good idea, my only concern is that now this secret is all over TikTok where anyone can find it. So maybe on second thought, I'll just have to think up my own genius hiding spot for all of my most valuables. In our number 5 spot today, we have this hidden time capsule. Cam, Me, and her husband were doing some renovations on their home when they stumbled upon their secret hidden room that they were blissfully unaware of prior to this. The room was filled with old pictures, and one of the most eerie among them was a photo of a child sitting in a go-kart with a seemingly headless man standing beside him. Cam has said that she really hopes the photo was just some sort of an exposure problem because it really is extremely creepy to see. Aside from the photo, the couple also found a Christmas gift from a past owner that was addressed to the occupant, some postcards, and a 1960s letter addressed to the writer's mom about a family dispute. The whole thing is not only interesting because it really is like a time capsule, but it also makes you wonder what led to this room being closed off and hidden for all of those years, especially with all of that stuff inside.
Number 2. Deathly Pearls. If you've seen the movie Annabelle Comes Home, this next secret room in a secret museum should ring a bell. Character Daniela in the movie, she tries to communicate to a loved one beyond the grave. Now, in order to do so, she puts on a bracelet from Ed and Lorraine's Occult Museum. Now, there isn't a mourning bracelet in the real Occult Museum, but there is such thing as the Pearls of Death, and you cannot touch them, obviously. These are very real and they are very locked up, and they're also very lovely, might I add. I think they would look fabulous on me. These pearls were added to the museum after a woman claimed they were strangling her by themselves. The second this poor woman put these pearls on, she needed people around her to help yank the pearls from her neck. Yeah, these haunted pearls have nothing on Martha Wayne. Don't touch them. And finally, number 1. A secret bowling alley. We'll end this list on a fun note because it's almost Friday and I'm here to have fun. And because this is probably the coolest one on this list, in my personal opinion. The Frick Collection resides in the former home of Henry Frick, of course. This is on Manhattan's Upper East Side. A handful of you have probably been here. Again, I'm jealous. This collection is a museum in itself. It contains paintings, sculptures, furniture, all historical, and all made from European artists from as far back as the 13th century. The mansion itself is rather new. That was built in 1913, and of course it was also used as the Frick's family residence. A rich family in the early 1900s. You already know there's some secret rooms, right? Areas closed off to the public, but what's hiding in there, right? What are we missing? Well, we're missing fun, rich family stuff. Like, you know, a 2-lane bowling alley built in 1914, and a billiards room, and a wood shop, and even a tiny diner in case you get hungry. You and your rich purge family, you can go eat in a secret diner. There you go, enjoy it, 1900s. Starting our list off at number 10, the Stranahan House. Okay, you don't want to be stranded at the Stranahan House, that's for sure. Fort Lauderdale, it has a few haunted hidden gems, apparently. It's always Florida, always something going on over there. The oldest house just happens to be the most haunted. What do you know? I could have guessed that, that's for sure. The house's OG owner was that of Frank Stranahan, and today if you visit ye old stomping grounds, well, you might actually catch a photo of Frank himself. Yeah, it's said that he still oversees the place as a ghost. He regularly shows up in guests' photos, so I don't know, maybe he likes the attention. Maybe he likes photobombing, I'm not sure. I suppose being trapped in the same house for all of eternity gets a little boring. I mean, sure, fair. Ivy Stranahan, Frank's late wife, well, she's also made an appearance or two. Yeah, true love is haunting the same house together. That's really it. Guests have felt a cold hand on their shoulder, and her perfume still lingers in the hallways, so must have been some good strong stuff, that's for sure. Now, it's not all fun and games with the phantom family members. Augustus Stranahan, Frank's father, well, his ghost, he likes to throw books from time to time over in the library, so let's avoid that library, shall we? Let's do it. Next, number 9, the Tampa Theater. If you're a theater kid, you're gonna love this one. You're gonna be singing West Side Story tunes in no time. Tampa Theater opened back in 1926. Today, the theater is said to be haunted by a woman that was struck and, sadly, her life was taken by a carriage on the property. By a carriage. What a sad, slow way to go. This was actually before the theater was built, keep that in mind. So her spirit had been there for a while, and then it was built, and then immediately it's haunted. The janitors are like, what? It's been one day, how is this possibly haunted? If you go to Tampa Theater today, you might catch a glimpse of a woman in a white gown walking across the mezzanine hallway. Imagine telling somebody to sit down during a show and then they just disappear. You're like, okay, that works just as well. That's great, thank you. Tampa Theater, of course, has leaned into these claims. Now they offer the Ghosts of Tampa Theater Tour, of course, where you can line up and pay money to, you know, go and get spooked, I guess. Now, guests can learn about its haunted history and it's fun, but still, would you go? Would you pay money to go somewhere that's knowingly haunted? I wouldn't. Definitely not. Sound off below, would you? The comments are like, yeah, I would. Gary Sinise. I'd definitely go. What have I done? Number 5, restricted Aboriginal art. While some collections are kept out of sight for museum visitors because they're, you know, extremely scandalous in nature or they're live bugs, others are kept in secret rooms out of respect. In the National Museum of Australia, David Couse, senior curator of the museum's Aboriginal programs, he wrote this long report explaining the choice to hide these artifacts from history. Now, David himself has said, and I quote, that it is the responsibility of museums to respect the cultures they want to depict. The public use of Aboriginal secrets and or sacred objects is not consistent with this responsibility, end quote. In order to gain access to these restricted Aboriginal objects, these beautiful pearl shell ornaments, you need permission from traditional Aboriginal custodians. Can't just get a fast pass and go take a peek. Not that easy, my friends. Number 4, Vatican Secrets. Vatican archives are 53 miles long, so there's a lot of secrets hiding down there, okay? There's around 35,000 volumes of catalog. The Vatican's secret archives are no joke. They're very real, but in order to see them for yourselves, it's gonna take some time. You gotta earn it, okay? Again, you can't just beep, fast pass your way in. The indexes are not public, hence why I'm including them in this list. Only highly respected scholars can access it after they're 75 years old. Their official purpose is to house holy official paperwork, and of course, it's a treasure trove of anything and everything related to the Pope, as well as these long lost ancient documents, because where else do you safely store a letter from Mary Queen of Scots, right? Dudes are out here hucking cakes at the Mona Lisa. Yeah, we're gonna keep these ancient notes locked up, I think. No one's gonna be hucking cakes at this one. Queen Mary of Scots was killed after serving roughly 20 years in custody, but eventually she was sentenced to death for conspiring to kill Queen Elizabeth I. But before she met her untimely fate, she wrote a letter to Pope Sixtus V, literally begging for her life in this letter. But of course, as we now know, the Pope did not intervene, and on February 8th, 1587, Mary Queen of Scots was executed. Now, when it comes to cursed items withheld from the public, this note is definitely up there. There's also a secret room that contains the 200-foot tall Tower of the Winds, only accessible through these secret archives, so we're never gonna see them. Number 3, King Tut's Cursed Artifacts. The new Grand Egyptian Museum was set to open in 2018, and then finally it did in 2021. And while that's quite recent, the contents displayed inside certainly are not. For the first time in history, King Tut's ancient belongings, like all of them discovered with him, will now be on display. Now, prior to this museum being open, we only saw 150 artifacts from his tomb. They took all these pieces out on tour like they're Kiss or something. But now this museum will house thousands of artifacts. We could all go and see it in one place. There's over 7,000 square meters, and it's quite a display. If you have a chance to visit the Grand Egyptian Museum, or if you saw this King Tut World Tour on the road, I'm jealous, because many of these artifacts were held aside from the public because they were deemed cursed. So if you visit, don't touch anything, please. Number 9, flesh-eating beetle room. Okay, enough about ancient butts. Let's move on to the weird, shall we? Chicago's Field Museum. This one's chock full of secret rooms. I'll mention one more on this list later on, but I have to include the flesh-eating beetle room. The Field Museum uses real hide beetles to clean its specimens in order to get each of these carcasses ready for showtime. These beetles are on the clock. They're business-oriented. In just a few hours, a small rodent can be completely cleaned. Number 8, Naples' secret adult room. Okay, we can all agree that last one was pretty disgusting, so I'll liven up the mood once again with some scandalous Pompeii excavations. After the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, the small city of Pompeii was of course covered in hot ash. Now, the ancient Roman ruin is still being uncovered today, but back in the 1700s, most of the lost city was excavated for the first time in history. And the King of Naples got the best of the best, right? He was first up, first dibs. Most of the contents are now kept in the Archaeological Museum in Naples, but some have to be held in the secret room. In the past, you had to receive permission from the king himself to take a quick peek at this sensual art. Number 7, Medici Chapels. This one begins with an epic discovery, okay? Back in 1975, the director of the Medici Chapels Museum in Florence, Italy, was searching for a new exit route for visitors. He was trying to expand whilst controlling traffic a little bit more, right? We love big moves. Now, in doing so, the director himself stumbled across this trap door beneath a closet. There also lies a few clues on the walls. There are sketches and drawings, the style of which seems to belong to one Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah, this is pretty big news. This room was immediately closed for renovations. It was held a secret until 2020, so for many, of course, this is still widely unknown, so I hope you learned a thing or two so far in this list. If you live in the area, go check out some ancient trapdoors in Italy. There you go. Number 6, secret insect room. If you're in Liverpool and you love insects, oh boy, do I have just the tea for you. Let's go. Inside the World Museum in Liverpool lies a secret room, and inside it contains around 1 million insects. Don't worry, these ones are dead this time around. This collection began back in 1855. The 13th Earl of Derby, he's like, you know what? I need a cupboard full of shiny bugs. Let's make it happen, gang. Yeah, let's do it. Thousands of specimens now hide in this room, including the world's largest beetle and a moth with the largest wingspan. Big old shirt with wings. There you go. Imagine Night at the Museum, but it takes place in the World Museum in London. Bugs everywhere. Ben Stiller would not make it out. No way. There would not be 3 sequels.
In our number 2 spot today, we have this storage cupboard basement. A TikToker named Abby uploaded a TikTok that featured the caption, "I can't believe what we found in our storage cupboard." Well, this storage cupboard revealed a hidden secret passageway to a basement that they had no idea existed. They explained that they decided to investigate because the storage area is where they put their vacuum cleaner, and they always felt like it sounded hollow beneath it. When they went down there was clearly evidence someone had once been down there, with things all over the floor, with some creepy scratched out pop art posters on the wall. Some commenters had theories that the secret basement may have actually been a World War II bunker, while other commenters swear that the opening of the basement must have released some spirits into our world. The whole basement is very creepy looking and is quite literally falling apart, but it could have some potential if they renovated it. In our number 1 spot today, we have this creepy Airbnb. This TikToker was staying at an Airbnb when he began to get some eerie feelings. It started when he first met the owners of the Airbnb and realized that they were surprised that he was a male and not a female. Any female knows what a huge red flag that would be. He goes on to explain that he could hear some strange noises coming from the vent in the middle of the night and also had a feeling that he was being watched. Instead of doing nothing, he decided to investigate. He approached the vent and ended up finding a whole entire room behind it. He explains that he didn't actually catch anyone spying on him or catch anyone actually in the room, but like anyone, the whole thing absolutely freaked him out and was more than enough to keep him on edge. I'm truthfully just hoping that he didn't stay at the Airbnb for any longer and also reported it.
Kicking off the list at number 10. British Museum's adult room. Okay, young ones, hide your eyes, here we go. We'll kick this list off on a scandalous note. The British Museum, they have a long lost adult themed room, to put it lightly. The museum itself dates back to the mid-1700s. At its initial opening, the museum only let 10 people in at a time. Now, of course, it holds many more people every day, but some collections not everybody can handle. In the Victorian era, the museum had a secret room for obscene objects, or objects that are deemed perverse. There's a part of a temple wall that shows, the dirtiest deed being done. And the collection includes a Roman terracotta lamp that depicts a naked woman on a crocodile.
Coming in number 9, we have the Mount Rushmore Vault. Now this next one is going to sound like it was pulled out of a comic book, but I will let you know that it is 100% real. Behind Abraham Lincoln's head on Mount Rushmore is a secret tunnel that leads to a massive room that is full of US documents. Like, come on. I remember Team America World Police, they had a secret base in Mount Rushmore, but this couldn't be the truth. But would I lie to you? This was actually the original vision of the man who built Mount Rushmore. And can I just say for a moment that this is probably the most patriotic thing that anyone has ever done? I mean, you could put a flag in your front yard, but that is nothing compared to the amount of work that went into building faces of some of the most famous presidents in America into the side of a mountain. But inside this vault are some government documents. Now, what's on those documents, no one really knows. It could be anything. They could be extremely valuable. It could be the Declaration of Independence, or it could be just a bunch of boring files that don't really mean anything. And you're not going to get invited into this vault unless you have some sort of government power. Coming in at number 8, we have the Lehman Brothers secret Times Square building. When you look at all of the massive buildings in Times Square, you probably think that rent must be super high to have a spot in one of those buildings. Well, you would be right, but there is something that is even more valuable than renting the space. It's ads. If every building in Times Square is covered in ads because companies will pay out the butt to have all their stuff promoted up there. And the Lehman Brothers saw this as an opportunity and decided that was all they needed for their building. One of the centerfold buildings in Times Square is owned by the Lehman Brothers, and there is nothing in it. If you were to walk around inside this building, you would literally just have open spaces and dangling wires. The whole thing just acts as a massive billboard, and it's probably very profitable because they don't need to worry about any building upkeep. Coming in at number 7, we have Niu Hawaii. How big could a secret room be? Well, how about 70 square miles? Well, this one isn't so much a room, but it is very much an island, and it is definitely a secret that the government is trying to keep secret from everyone. This place is closed off to visitors. It is a self-sufficient island that only has 130 people living on it, and although the people are allowed to leave, no one is allowed to enter outside of medical services. There are some very strict rules on this island. For one, there is no booze. Just so you know, you wouldn't be able to sneak on the island and have a big party. The people there aren't really into that. Also, there are no guns, which is probably a good thing, but again, it brings down how much excitement there will be at any given time. And this place has chosen a way of life that is very different from our own. They don't have any plumbing, they have no traditional roads, and everything in terms of food is taken from the land by farmers and brought to the people. They do have electricity, however. All of that comes from solar panels, but they do not have internet. So you're going to have to get very good at talking to people. What a scary thought. Coming in number 6, we have the Eiffel Tower apartment. If you go to Paris, you can now see what would be the most expensive apartment in the whole city, and that is the Eiffel Tower apartment. The man who built the Eiffel Tower didn't only do it so he could have his masterpiece be the center of attention. No, he wanted to have the best apartment maybe in the world. At the top of the Eiffel Tower is an apartment that only could be accessed by one man who built the Eiffel Tower himself, Gustave Eiffel. Now, people can go visit, but that isn't even the most secret part of this secret room. There's also something that is underneath one of the legs of the Eiffel Tower, and that is a military bunker that can prep troops in the heart of the city without the enemy catching on. Could you imagine a bunch of French troops popping out of the base of the Eiffel Tower? You have to admit, the French have a way with theatrics. Coming in number 4, we have the secret train station under Waldorf Astoria. In movies, high-ranking government officials always have some sort of secret underground transportation that they can use to get around, and some of you think that that couldn't be a real thing in real life. There's no way that something like that could exist. Well, think again. Under one of the most famous hotels in New York, a hotel known as the Waldorf Astoria, there is a train station that is only used by the president himself. This is partly because almost every president has stayed there ever since its inception, but it's also one of the most secure ways for the president to travel. No one can get down there, and even if they did, there is a ton of secret features that the rail car has. For all we know, this thing could be built like a Bond car and have heat-seeking missiles that come through the headlights. Coming at number 3, we have Room 39. This is one of the most secret places in North Korea, which is already a very secretive place. No one really knows what goes on in Room 39, but people suspect that government workers work in there to try and create revenue for North Korea through illegal activity. Thought that they could be cooking and organizing the distribution of crystal meth, and they are also finding ways to commit billions of dollars in insurance fraud. That is wild.
Number 8, the Biltmore, Florida Hotel. Again, it's always Florida. What's going on over there? Another room to avoid at all costs. This time it's the entire property. Let's just turn right instead of left. First of all, do you like staying at a hotel? Some people love it. Some people find it relaxing. I can't sleep at all. I always get sick for some reason. I like get the shivers. I don't know. Maybe I'm staying in all the haunted hotels. Must be me. The Biltmore Hotel in the city of Coral Gables is one of the most haunted hotels ever. It all started back in 1926 during initial construction. The Biltmore witnessed a foul killing on the 13th floor. Again, during construction, these things are always doomed. The Biltmore also turned into a military hotel during World War II, and then it was closed afterwards and ultimately abandoned later in 1968. So yeah, tons of ghosts walking down those hallways. The city renovated the hotel back in the 1980s, but again, didn't take long for ghost stories to spread. Of course, the most activity is on the 13th floor. So if you check this one out, really double down, really go for it and stay a night at the 13th floor. I can't believe some buildings don't have a 13th floor. Well, they do, but everyone wants to pretend like they don't. You know what I mean? We all know. Going up that staircase, you're counting, you're like, oh, they lied. Number 7, Whey House. Located in San Diego and built in 1857. The Whey House is an example of why you don't build your house on cursed lands. Yeah, let's go to the next plot over. This one seems a little occupied. A little Elden Rings action going on here. The site that this family's home was built on was also the location of San Diego's first ever public gallows. Ah, nice. What a fun fact that is. Let's move in. And apparently, right after moving in, Thomas Whaley said he could hear the footsteps of Yankee Jim Robinson, who had lost his life in the same gallows only 4 years prior. That's terrifying. How do you not know? 4 years ago? Come on. After the family had settled, they had all began to experience a bunch of family tragedies, most of which actually happened inside the house. Inside the house. Hence the cursed land aspect, right? Now we're kind of putting it together. As of today, the Whaley House is a museum, and apparently the family members continue to haunt that said museum. So sadly, you can't live there anymore or sleep there, but you have to pay a little pretty penny and go and take a look and take a sniff. I don't know why I said take a sniff, but sure, some people like to smell old history. Why not?
And coming in at the number 1 spot is Area 51. Come on, this has to be number 1. What is going on in Area 51? Now, is this a room? Well, kinda. It's an indoor facility, so there is a room in there somewhere, I'm sure. But the whole thing has to be the biggest place that the government is hiding from us. And what is going on in there? We have no idea. I think we could all say aliens. That's probably what we're all thinking. But there could be some tech that will change the world. They could have mech suits in there that are like the ones from Pacific Rim. Just let us in already and we'll stop messing around with the stock market. I promise.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Friszel Guest House. Joseph Friszel was an abominable man, of that we know. In 2008, Fritzel's House of Horrors was discovered. Now, Joseph Friszel and his wife Rosemarie actually used to run a guest house in the town of Untracht in Mondsee in Austria. That was before they moved to Amstetten, where his House of Horrors was later discovered. As you may know, Friszel had been keeping his daughter imprisoned in the basement of his home in a secret room hidden from view. Eventually, Elizabeth managed to break free after 24 years, may I add. The Friszel house, in which the horrid man imprisoned his daughter in a locked room, was eventually remodeled with the secret cell removed. However, it seems that the story wasn't over. In 2017, another secret room was discovered in Fritzel's old guest house. It seems that contractors working on the property, once owned by the convict, found a staircase behind an improvised wall leading to a secret room. This seems to indicate that the predator may have imprisoned more victims in the past that police didn't know about. Coming into number 9, we have an ancient chapel. To me, this absolutely looks like a curse room. I'm straight up calling old, hidden, satanic place of worship here, but maybe I'm just being a bit dramatic. Take a look at this. Now, for me, from the outside, this looks like a normal detached house in the UK. The house is in Telford and it's around 230 years old, which I know sounds old to a lot of you watching, but really, for the UK, isn't that old? Owners Pat and Diane Furler suspected it may have once been a pub. It looks like it could have been. One day they decided to investigate a metal grill in their floor, but they definitely wish they hadn't. They broke through below the grill and found, well actually, let me show you some pictures. They found a totally eerie stone chamber that looked like an old chapel. It even had a crucifix on the floor. On the floor! They then found that there was a staircase leading to a cupboard in another area of their house, which to me is super weird and super freaky. Why on earth would someone be praying in secret? Also, the way the cross looks on the floor, to me, is absolutely cursed. 10 out of 10 cursed. Coming into number 8, we have the missing Amber Room. The whereabouts of the Amber Room remain a mystery to this day. Once a priceless art piece belonging to the Tsars of the Russian Empire, the Amber Room was dismantled and hidden during World War II. As you likely know, in World War II, Germany invaded Russia, and the whole thing led to one of the biggest death tolls in the history of warfare. But before the Germans came, the Russians knew that they were coming, they knew that they were screwed, and they started hiding their treasures. The Amber Room, once considered the 8th wonder of the world, was a whole room made up of old Russian money. Likely old Russian blood money, if we're totally honest. Either way, they wanted to hide the room. They didn't want the Germans getting their hands on it. To this day though, it's actually never been found, although it has been reconstructed. There's a brand new Amber Room, but not the original. So I'm wondering, do we even want to know where Russians hide stuff? Because probably not. Coming in at number 7, we have Down the Rabbit Hole. Okay, here's the headline for you. Rabbit hole leads to hidden caves of the Knights Templar. What? The Knights Templar, for those of you that don't know, were a secret religious order who fought the Crusaders between the 12th and 14th centuries. In March 2017, a rabbit hole in a farmer's field was explored to reveal an ancient cave. Explorer Michael Scott found the historic wonder and said it was deathly silent in the caves. I can only imagine the horrendous stuff that went on down there, honestly. It's so freaky! Look at these pictures! Coming in at number 6, we have Walt Disney's Haunted Bedroom. Disneyland California was the OG Disney theme park. Opened in 1955, Walt Disney had several secret rooms built in the theme park, including a princess apartment in Sleeping Beauty's castle, the mysterious and elusive Club 33, and his very own apartment above the fire station on Main Street, which is kind of near the park entrance. It seems that ever since Walt Disney's passing in 1966, his old room has been haunted by his spirit. Now, according to Disney legend, a cleaner was tidying up his apartment only to notice a lamp was lit by the window, which was very strange because it had been unoccupied for some time. She then turned it off and went about her job. She was shocked to notice that the lamp had flickered back on by itself. She turned it off once more, only to see the lamp fire up again before her very eyes. Since that day, nobody has ever tried to turn the lamp off, and it is kept burning as a symbol of Walt's spirit living on in the park. Coming into number 5, we have this secret dungeon. When a video pops up in your YouTube recommendations with the title, "Moved into a new apartment," warning, secret dungeon, you just have to click it because, I mean, of course you do, right? We're not idiots. We need to see this. I need to see the secret dungeon. So the description is pretty juicy. It reads, "Earlier this week, I moved into a one-bed studio apartment in England. I'd never seen the place before. I paid my deposit. And after I moved in, I noticed a strange hatch in the floor. It's an old converted 19th century monastery, so I thought there might be something interesting." As it turns out, we have a dungeon. It's every badly written horror movie happening in real life. Here's a video tour I made tonight. Whew, like I said, juicy. Okay, so let's skip the beginning of the tour. I'll give you the highlights just so you know. So, the lad is living in a small ground floor apartment, old building, high ceilings, old monastery, bedroom on a mezzanine level with mirrors on the ceiling, and we're gonna skip past that really quickly. Weird, but you know, yeah, nice bathroom tiles, kitchen, so on and so forth. But then, oh wait, what's that? It's a hatch. A hatch to where, I hear you cry. Well, let's have a look.
That looks like it goes in pretty deep.
Okay, so he goes down in there and what does he see? Let's have some still images for you so you can get the whole picture because the video is pretty freaky and bumpy. Okay, I'm saying that is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen, but at the same time, adds a lot of value on the rent, right? Imagine all the storage in that murder bunker. Hurrah! Coming into number 4, we have the tape room. Redditor Lumberjack went pretty viral with global news articles written about their creepy findings, which they posted onto the social media site. So it all went down in May 2014 when the Redditor posted images of a mysterious panel in the wall. Here it is. Okay, so obviously he opened up the panel. He then went on through a whole adventure through a carpeted crawl space in which he found a briefcase containing jewelry and a selection of foreign currencies. The worst discovery, however, was a box of videotapes labelled from 94 to 95. One of the tapes was inscribed with "No, no, no, no" on it, which doesn't sound great. We don't actually know what's on it though, the Redditor didn't tell us. They also found a note that read, "Save yourself." Not looking so good. Lumberjack said that they were asked to delete the post by a local sheriff who was investigating a murder. Coming into number 3, we have the walled up room. There is a Reddit thread on No Sleep called "Never buy a house with a walled up room." And do you know what? Like, I guess don't. I think that's good advice. Don't do it. Why? Because of the old act of incurement, which is the act of bricking someone alive in a room until they die and then just leaving them there. Good, joyous. There have been so many instances of people tearing down false walls and finding bodies. In July 2013, the hidden skeleton of a woman who'd been missing for 28 years was discovered when contractors found a false wall in the basement of her old home. Now the body was described as being skeletonized with the hands tied with a rope. Murder. Murder! It seems that also the bishop who haunts the infamous Borley Rectory in England was incurred. Bricked in a wall. He now throws bricks at passers-by and I kinda get it. Coming into number 2, we have the secret bunker of Denver Airport. There are a lot of rumors and legends that Denver Airport in Colorado is sitting on the top of a secret satanic lair. Hints and clues come from a hellish-looking blue horse with glowing red eyes. What is this horse? Oh, it's only the Egyptian god of death. Good! Great. Thanks, Denver. Also, the sculpture fell on its creator who later died as a result of his injuries, so I'm not feeling good about it. There are also murals inside the building that look kinda swastika-esque, and also there are an uncomfortable number of triangles. The real crux of the conspiracy is that the airport is just so big. Like, why? Not all of that space is being used. Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura thinks that Denver Airport sits above a giant apocalypse bunker for government officials. But the majority of conspiracists think that the underground labyrinth is used as a secret meeting spot for Satanists or the Illuminati. Denver, what is going on? Finally, coming into number 1, we have the hidden chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Most of you watching will have heard of the curse of the pharaohs. When King Tutankhamun's tomb was opened up in 1922, the legendary curse of the pharaohs was a main topic of conversation and continues to be an enduring legend. Basically, the archaeological discovery was dogged by a number of untimely and mysterious deaths from those involved in the excavation. This led many to believe that Egyptian curses are pretty real. Okay, so with that in mind, what if I tell you a whole new room has been discovered in the Great Pyramid of Giza? The Heritage Innovation Preservation Project has been working with Cairo University and the Egyptian government to scan the Great Pyramids. Yes, scan. This is super hi-fi modern day tech stuff. Scanning! In 2017, the pyramid housing the tomb of the great pharaoh Khufu showed a mysterious and spooky void when it was scanned. Khufu. What a name! Khufu! I wish my name was Khufu. Built in 2560 BC, this weird void has been locked away and secret for over 4,000 years. Now the void stretches for at least 30 meters above the Grand Gallery, an ascending corridor that links the Queen's Chamber to the King's Chamber in the heart of the pyramid. A void in the heart? I don't like the sound of this. I would not want to be the one who goes in to investigate this scary hidden room because, well, curse me once, shame on you, but curse me twice. Honestly, shame on me. Humans, honestly, we just need to Leave things alone. Leave them to the Egyptian gods. Let them have their business.
Coming in at number 10 is Fort Delaware. Fort Delaware, built in the 19th century to protect the ports of Wilmington and Philadelphia, served as a prison camp for Confederate prisoners of war during the Civil War. Almost 13,000 prisoners were held at one time, and around 33,000 were kept there in total over the course of the war. Now, conditions were rough, and around 2,500 men died at the fort. The fort was then abandoned towards the end of World War II and became a state park in 1951. Today, it is extremely haunted. It's rumored that throughout the parade grounds, Confederate spirits roam, still trying to escape from the fort. One of the most popular stories is of an attempted escape from a Confederate drummer boy. Legend has it he tried to fake his own death in order to be transported back across the river in a coffin. Waiting on him on the other side of the river were either sympathetic Union troops or fellow inmates who were supposed to free him from the coffin. Unfortunately, a shift change SWAT personnel, and instead of being freed, the boy was buried alive. Now, there's also a photograph that was taken of a ghost there who's called the Blue Man, and this place is just filled with ghosts roaming around. Number 9. Poinsett Bridge. Poinsett Bridge is the oldest bridge in South Carolina and perhaps the entire southeastern United States. According to local folklore, Poinsett Bridge was built on the site of an old Indian burial ground dating back to when Cherokees were the only inhabitants of the mountains of the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. With this, it's no shock that this place is haunted. Other stories go that some of the men who worked to build Poinsett Bridge died during the bridge's construction due to a variety of illnesses, one of which was malaria. These men were then supposedly buried under and even within the bridge itself. Now, according to one legend, a slave was once hung under Poinsett Bridge and his ghost still haunts it, said resident Doris Davis. The bridge is haunted by those who helped build it but got none of Joel Poinsett's glory. The ghosts of the slaves who died during construction sometimes reappear as lights in the surrounding woods and on the bridge itself after dusk and hover in mid-air for a few seconds and then vanish. Number 8. Eastern State Penitentiary. Eastern State Penitentiary is a former prison in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The punishments here were horrible. There was a water bath in which inmates were dunked then hung up on a wall in winter until ice formed on the skin. There was the mad chair, which bound an inmate so tightly that circulation was cut off, later necessitating amputations. There was the iron gag, in which an inmate's hands were tied behind the back and strapped to an iron collar in the mouth so that any movement caused the tongue to tear and bleed profusely. And then there was the hole, which was an underground cell where prisoners had no light, no human contact, no exercise, no toilet, and little food and air. With all these horrors, it's no shock that the place is haunted. Cell Block 12 is known for echoing voices and cackling, Cell Block 6 for shadowy figures darting along the walls, and Cell Block 4 for visions of ghostly faces. Many people have reported seeing a silhouette of a guard in one of the towers. There's footsteps, and one of the most legendary tales comes from Gary Johnson, who helps maintain the crumbling old locks at the prison. In the early 1990s, he had just opened an old lock in Cell Block 4 when he said a force gripped him so tightly that he was unable to move. He described a negative, horrible energy that exploded out of the cell. He also added that tormented faces appeared on the cell walls and that one form in particular beckoned to him. Number 7. Bodie. Bodie is a ghost town located in California. In the 1870s and 80s, Bodie boomed when gold was found in the hills surrounding Mono Lake, which at one point was home to 10,000 people. It's now a state historic park, with some parts of the town preserved in a state of arrested decay. Now, there are many reports of supernatural activity here, including ghost sightings and music playing from shuttered bars. There's also a legend that any visitor who takes anything from Bodie, even a rock, will be cursed with bad luck and health problems upon leaving. According to park rangers, many who have taken things eventually return them to the park to rid themselves of this curse. Now, the Gregory House is said to be haunted by the ghost of an old woman. Guests and staff have reported seeing her sitting in a rocking chair knitting an Afghan. Other times, the rocking chair has been seen rocking on its own. The Mendocini House is called home to several friendly ghosts. One is thought to be Miss Mocindy, who loved to cook her Italian food, and rangers report today that they often smell the delicious aroma of her cooking when they enter the house.
We have the 600 rooms in the Cecil Hotel. You're probably really familiar with this hotel due to its dark history. It's said that all 600 rooms of the Cecil Hotel are cursed due to the murders, maniacs, and ghosts that roam inside. A bunch of serial killers used to call this hotel their home, maybe because they all felt a strange affinity to it. And over the years, a lot of guests have mysteriously died without any reasonable explanations. One of the most mysterious deaths was Alyssa Lamb. Her body was found 2 weeks after her death when people were complaining about the water tasting weird. Her body was decomposing in the rooftop water tanks for weeks. The discovery of her body led investigators to watch the surveillance footage. They saw Alyssa go onto the elevator alone, then look outside the door several times. She left the elevator and it looked like she was having a conversation with someone who wasn't really there. And that was the last time she was seen alive.
Number 4. The Shanghai Tunnels. The Shanghai Tunnels in Portland were built by Chinese workers during the time when Chinatown was the center for trade business. The tunnel's original design was for transporting goods from cargo ships to the inner city. By using the tunnels, the ship's crew could avoid the hassle of inner city traffic. Now, the tunnels get their name for the practice of kidnapping and selling men as workers on ships headed to East Asia. Restless, agitated spirits of men who were drugged and trafficked in the city ports during the early 19th century are said to haunt the underground tunnels, through which they were reportedly sold. Legend has it that local saloons contained entrances to the tunnels, enabling swindlers to prey on unsuspecting patrons and bring them directly underground before they even knew what was going on. Now, deep within the tunnels, travelers have reported feeling goosebumps as if someone is watching them from the shadows. Many people report seeing an Asian man walking past them in the tunnels, and explorers name the spirit Sam and say that he is responsible for turning off the lights in the bar basements. Sam also likes to move things around in the tunnels as explorers walk by. Now, up until 2023, visitors could also take walking tours to learn more about the dark history of the tunnels, but the tours have ended indefinitely. Number 3. Northern State Mental Hospital. Northern State Mental Hospital in Washington operated from 1912 to 1976. Like countless other mental asylums of the time, grisly experiments were performed on patients, some of which have even been rumored to be part of the top secret government program MK Ultra. Now, patients were being subjected to treatments like insulin shock therapy, lobotomies, and electroshock therapy. Heavy sedation with powerful drugs was also a common form of treatment, but truly it was just to keep patients in line and submissive. Now, countless patients died here, and rarely were the bodies claimed by families, so their disposal was left to the state. According to hospital records, 1,487 bodies are buried on the grounds of the asylum. The Washington state legislature cut off funding to the asylum, and in 1976, Northern State officially closed its doors. Now, with so much suffering, death, and disregard for human life, the place is just straight up haunted. Most of those who were admitted weren't actually suffering from severe mental illness and were sent to the asylum to live out the rest of their lives under lock and key. Those who dare visit the asylum grounds report strange phenomena such as cold spots, the feeling of being watched, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being touched. Now, some have seen strange shadows darting around the graveyard. Now, the most commonly encountered entity is that of a young girl with a red ball and a man chasing after her. They've been seen running around the property, though some report the girl standing alone in the graveyard as well. Number 2. Lake Shaunie Amusement Park. Lake Shaunie Amusement Park in West Virginia is full of history. Legend has it that this land in Rock, West Virginia was once occupied by the Clay family, whose sons and daughters were kidnapped and had their lives ended by Native Americans, while the father, Mitchell Clay, was out hunting. Lake Shaunie Amusement Park opened in 1926 and was abandoned 40 years later after a girl died on the swing set and a boy drowned in the pond. In 1985, Gaylord White, a former employee of the park, purchased the land with plans to reopen it, but those dreams were put to a stop after human remains were found buried on the property. There were 13 skeletons in total. White believes the premises to be haunted and says he's seen the girl who met her fatal end after a truck backed into her on the swings. And coming at number 1 is Summerwind Mansion. Summerwind Mansion in Wisconsin is believed to be one of the most haunted places in the US. This abandoned building is located on the shores of West Bay Lake in Vilas County on private land. The Lemans were the owners of this mansion, and for 15 years of their occupancy, they experienced strange things. In the mid-1930s, 1930s, as the family was busy dining, the door to the basement opened with a man appearing out of thin air. Lemans shot at the spirit twice and chased him back into the cellar. The family later moved out, leaving the mansion empty until the 1970s, when Arnold and Ginger Hinshaw purchased the building to turn it into a dream home. However, the paranormal activity chased the crew away, and the Hinshaws then took the renovation work into their own hands. Even then, the strange happenings did not stop. One night, Mary, Arnold's daughter, found a human skull and a handful of black hair in a hidden crawl space, which mysteriously disappeared when the police decided to investigate the house years later. The Hinshaws started behaving abnormally, and strange things still happen at that mansion, even after its destruction by lightning that occurred in 1988, leaving much of it completely destroyed.
Number 10 is the Lucy Unaliving House. In Uniontown, Alabama, stands a once stunning Greek revival mansion that now seems engulfed by the earth. Its tragic history matches its eerie appearance, because in 1994, the Lucy Unaliving House gained notoriety when the remains of Alan Lucy were discovered buried beneath its front porch. Alan, who lived with his adoptive parents, Philip and Margaret Lucy, vanished in 1985. Now what's chilling is that Philip and Margaret's biological son, Jason, had been telling classmates that his father unalived Alan and buried him in the backyard. But no one believed Jason's claims back then, despite earlier rumors about the case took years to resolve, and only after decades when Alan Lucy's unaliving was brought to justice. However, the impact still lingers, as the house remains a haunted relic, reflecting the environmental injustices that have plagued upon Uniontown, driving residents away and leaving those who stayed fighting their own battles for justice. Number 9 is Gary, Indiana, where something eerie lurks amidst all these decaying houses. Around 10,000 abandoned homes scatter across the town, worn down by time and neglect. These empty structures with their crumbly walls and their worn-out roofs stand as grim reminders of a once thriving industry that faded away, leaving the town to struggle. These derelict houses now serve as shelters for those with nowhere else to go, or worse yet, are hiding spots for those with sinister intentions. A chilling example of this darkness unfold with serial unaliver Darren Van. Between 2013 and 2014, he took the lives of 7 people, unaliving them and leaving their bodies in these forsaken dwellings. Crime stayed hidden until he made a fatal mistake, leading to his arrest. His plea deal revealed the grim truth, exposing how these abandoned places provided him with a sinister cover for these horrific acts. The silence of these empty homes shielded his action, raising chilling questions about the lives lost and how much longer his crimes might have remained concealed if he didn't slip up. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is The Cage. Deep within the quaint village of the St. Oist lies a chilling relic of England's past, The Cage, a haunted house infamous for its eerie history. Originally a medieval prison where alleged witches faced trials and hangings in the 1500s, this place holds a spine-tingling reputation as one of England's haunted spots. 13 accused witches were once held here, and 3 met their demise on site, notably Ursula Kemp in 1582. After its closure as a prison in 1908, ghostly tales continued to swirl around the property. Previous owner Vanessa endured unexplainable phenomena, citing instances of ghostly encounters and poltergeist activities. Her reported experience include unsettling occurrences like being pushed while she was with child by an unseen force and objects mysteriously flying across rooms. Despite lingering spirits, a property found the new order in 2020 after a lengthening 12 years on the market. At number 7 is the Mixyong Ghost House in Taiwan. It was built in 1929 by a rich businessman, but soon after the family left it abandoned. One spooky legend revolves around how a maid who supposedly had an affair with the owner. The owner's wife found out, and she did some bad things to the maid. It said that the maid met her end tragically at the site, jumping into the well on her property, and now her ghost lingers here. Now, later on, the place became a shelter for members of a political party trying to escape persecution. Some say that a few of them also chose to unalive themselves here, making the place even more eerie. The story is super chilling. At number 6 is the Los Feliz Unaliving House, a spooky tale tied to a once elegant estate in LA. Back in 1959, Dr. Harold Perelson, a well-known cardiologist, tragically went on a rampage. He attacked his family in the night with a hammer, starting with his wife and the rest of his family. Luckily, the eldest daughter managed to escape and seek help. The house remained frozen in time after this terrible event. The family who next owned it never really moved in. They left the place as it was, keeping the Perelsons' belongings intact. Like an eerie time capsule from the 1950s with Christmas gifts still wrapped and forgotten, recently the house got cleared out and is up for sale with an estimated value of millions of dollars. At number 5, the Mojave Desert. It's stunning with its unique plants, especially the Joshua tree, but sadly, some people have used this vast, beautiful land as a place to hide terrible secrets. A former sheriff deputy chief mentioned that if someone wanted to hide something awful, they might choose a place like the California desert. It's isolated, making it easier to hide dark and disturbing things. In 1984, there was this guy named William Richard Bradford who pretended to be a photographer and lured people doing something horrible to them and then burying them in the desert after removing their tattoos. He got caught for 2 of these unalivings, but he might have done even more terrible stuff because he bragged about it, saying that there were probably more victims that no one even knows about. Not too long ago in 2013, they found the remains of 4 more in these shallow graves there. At number 4 is UK's House of Horror. This Victorian mansion in UK earned the chilling nickname House of Horror after a tragic incident that took place in 2006. Christopher Lumsden, a successful law partner, committed a horrific act by fatally unaliving his wife Alison by using a blade. This act occurred after Alison disclosed her intention to leave him for a family friend. Now, despite being guilty due to diminished responsibility, Lumsden served only 2.5 years in jail. The aftermath left the mansion abandoned, falling into a state of despair, and despite its once elegant appearance with well-kept lawns and tennis courts. In 2007, a property developer purchased the house, but its grim history deterred potential buyers. Over the decade-long restoration project, the mansion underwent significant renovations, and finally, it was put on the market for £2.5 million after being restored to its former glory. At number 3 is the Villa de Vecchi, known as the Red House, which sits quietly in the Italian mountains near Lake Combo. Built in the 1800s, it was once a grand summer retreat owned by a famous count, but now it stands abandoned, its elegance faded into ruin. Now, legends tell of a ghostly presence playing the piano within its walls every night. The history, however, holds far darker events because about 5 years after its completion, tragedy struck the Count's family. His wife was found brutally unalived, and their daughter vanished as well. The Count searched tirelessly for a year before unaliving himself in despair. The Red House hosted even darker events in later years. Rumors suggest that notorious occultist Aleister Crowley visited it, and his followers later conducted sinister rituals involving very gruesome things within its decaying rooms. At number 2 is Baton Rouge, which has been seeing a share of chilling stories involving serial unalivers lurking in abandoned places. Since 1997, this city has grappled with a serious issue, witnessing the loss of nearly 70 innocents at the hands of 5 different cold-hearted unalivers. It's alarming because Baton Rouge sits in Louisiana, the only state in the US with a unaliving rate exceeding 10 unalivings per 100,000 residents. And at number 1 is Loox Castle. Loox Castle is a place with a long history which has seen some unsettling times. Initially built for a Scottish family, it later turned into an asylum for people with mental illnesses in the 1930s. During WW2, it became a hospital, and inside those walls, fights among patients were sadly common. Imagine one brawl being so intense that staff and even innocent patients fled, leaving rioters locked inside. By the 1980s, the hospital was empty, and by 2002, it officially shut down. Now there's talk about changing the castle into apartments. Of course.
Flight 191 takes us to number 5. We're now talking about a cursed airplane number. If you ever find yourself booking a trip, pay close attention to your flight number. Is it Flight 191? You might want to consider changing your flight, and I'll tell you why. This flight has a higher than normal amount of crashes. There has been 4 commercial flights with this flight number, and they have all crashed. Another flight had an incident on board that caused the plane to divert from the flight plan. On an American Airlines flight, the plane crashed shortly after taking off in Chicago, and it killed 273 people on board. A Delta Airlines flight crashed while landing, and it killed 137 people. And a Comair flight crashed on takeoff, killing 49 people. There are a bunch of other airlines with flight numbers 191 that crashed, but I think you get the point. The San Fernando Cathedral, San Antonio, Texas jumps onto our list at number 4. We have another other cursed cathedral on this list. This church was built in 1868 and it is thought to be the oldest church in Texas. Well, according to the local report, this church is plagued with angry spirits and demonic forces. People have seen hooded ghosts in monks' clothing roaming the halls on a regular basis. Or they'll also see a man dressed in black who stalks you as you explore the church. And yes, the church is still open for business, so if you're brave enough, you can attend a service. That's if you dare. I don't dare. Personally, I'm not really that big into angry spirits following me around, but that might just be me.